All right, welcome to Hive Science. We have some amazing evolution stuff to talk about today, and maybe we're going to learn a little bit about LUCA. What do you guys think of that? Do you guys know what LUCA is? My hive's really smart, but I'll assume that some people watching this might not know. LUCA is the last universal common ancestor. Now, there's a few things to know about LUCA. LUCA would be the last universal common ancestor for all existing life right now. That's not to say that LUCA was the first organism. LUCA would have been part of a population, and there were other populations of organisms alive at the same time as LUCA that didn't leave any descendants at all. So while LUCA is our last universal common ancestor, there were organisms that lived alongside LUCA and had a common ancestor with LUCA that are not our common ancestor at all. So there are branches that died off before LUCA, millions and millions of years before LUCA, but LUCA is the last universal common ancestor for all the extant life today. So I stumbled upon this really cool article the other day, and I thought you guys would love to learn a little bit about it. Decades old questions surrounding the start of the tree of life could finally be solved. Scientists used a novel application of chromosomal analysis to finally answer a question that has challenged biologists for over a century. After decades of debate, scientists believe they have identified the most recent ancestor of the sister to all animals. This isn't LUCA, because LUCA would be for animals, plants, fungus. This is just for animals. Just for animals specifically. So this is going to be the last universal common ancestor for all animals. So it is LUCA, but not the universal LUCA. It's just the LUCA for animals, for the kingdom of Animalia. All right. After decades of debate, scientists believe they have identified the most recent ancestor of the sister to all animals via the novel use of an analytic technique. The finding settles a central question about the evolution of the entire tree of animal life. All animal life is descended from a single common ancestor, a multicellular organism that most likely lived more than 600 million years ago. This ancestor had two offspring, one that led to the evolution of animal life, and another that is referred to as the sister to all animals. In the quest to identify which living animals are most closely related to this sister group, scientists have narrowed it down to the possibility of two candidates: the sea sponges and the comb jellies. That's the ctenophores. Conclusive evidence to support either candidate, however, has remained elusive. Now, a new study published in May 17th in the journal Nature has resolved the long-running debate with the novel use of chromosomal analysis. The debate over the ancestors of sea sponges and comb jellies has been going on for decades. Yeah, look at those. Both really cool clades. So either one I'm going to be happy with. Actually, I'm going to do a poll before we get to the end of the which one is the closest to the sister clade. That's how we'll word it. And we're going to go sponges or comb jellies. Yep. And while I read on, you guys are going to vote. The solution came while Darren T. Schultz, lead author and current postdoctoral researcher at the University of Vienna, and a multi-institutional team were sequencing the genomes and complete sets of genetic information of comb jellies and their close relatives to understand more about their evolution. Rather than comparing individual genes, the team looked at their position on chromosomes across species. While changes to DNA occurred over the course of evolution, genes tend to remain the same on the same chromosome. On rare occasions of fusion and mixing, genes transfer from one chromosome to another in an irreversible process. Schultz compares this to shuffling a deck of cards. If you have two decks of cards and you shuffle them, they become mixed. Once mixed, you can't unmix it in the way it was before, and the probability that is almost impossible, Schultz told HiveScience. In other words, once a gene has moved from one chromosome to another, there is almost zero chance of it appearing in the original position again further down the evolutionary line. By looking at the large-scale movements of groups of genes across the animal groups, Schultz and the team were able to gain important insight into the family tree of these animals. The team found 14 groups of genes that appeared to separate chromosomes in comb jellies and their single-celled non-animal relatives. Interesting, in sponges and all other animals, these genes are arranged into 7 groups. Given that DNA of the comb jelly holds the gene groups in the original position prior to rearranging into 7 groups, it is indicative that they are descendants of the sister group that broke from the animal family tree before the mixing occurred. Further, the gene location rearrangements that were common to both sponges and other animals, a shared ancestor from which these rearrangements were inherited. The findings, therefore, resolve the controversial question over the lineage of the entire animal tree of life. Since the ancestors of comb jellies and sponges branched off from the family tree, their modern descendants have continued to evolve. So we cannot use this information to indicate what the first animal exactly looked like. However, scientists believe there is significant value in studying these modern animals in light of this new information about the lineage. If we understand how all animals are related to one another, it helps us understand how animals evolved, the things that make them animals, Schultz said. All right. So I think, comb jellies. Comb jellies was the answer. How many had comb jellies on the poll? Let's see, 29%. 29% got it right. It was actually, it looks like the sponges was what most of us were thinking, but comb jellies were the answer. Okay, so thank you so much for sticking around for this last little segment of Hive Sci here. And I appreciate everybody for hanging out. Please remember to be kind and take care. We will see you next time.